This is James Taylor, and you're listening to The Creative Life. The Creative Life podcast is a show created for you, the creative. If you're looking for inspiration, motivation, and advice while at home, at work, or on your daily commute, then this show is for you. Each episode brings you a successful creative, whether that's a musician, writer, artist, designer, performer, educator, or creative entrepreneur. They share their journey, their successes, their failures, their creative process, their insights, and much, much more. In this episode, I speak with multi-instrumentalist and composer Tony Gray, and he talks about how to be a self-sufficient creative professional. He also shares his inspiring story of when nearly dying from a car accident, going on to learn and master an instrument in a year, and then being accepted by one of the world's best music colleges. Enjoy this episode. Hey, it's James Taylor, and I'm excited today to bring you our featured guest. His name is Tony Gray, and Tony is a British-born and New York-based multi-instrumentalist, composer, bassist, and record producer. He's collaborated and performed with some of the world's greatest artists, including John McLaughlin, Hiromi, Herbie Hancock, Wayne Shorter, Mike Stern, and Gavin DeGraw. He is now known for his 6-string electric bass technique, and it was an accident at an early age that led him to pick up the bass, which we definitely want to hear about. So, Tony, welcome to the show.
Hi, James. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So share with our listeners what's going on in your world just now.
Well, there's so much going on in my world right now. I just moved house, which is always a crazy time. At the minute, I'm just working hard on my online school, like my educational side, and also just finishing up my new CD. So just plenty of stuff going on here.
And that doesn't sound like a native New York accent. So you were originally from the northeast of England?
Yeah, grew up in Newcastle.
And at what point did you move over to the US?
When I was 20, probably either 20 or just turned 21.
Okay. And are you still, you've just moved home as well? Is it still on the East Coast, or have you moved to another part of the US now?
Yeah, I'm up near Pittsburgh, which is it's still on the kind of the same area as New York. It's just north, like about a 6-hour drive, which sounds a lot if you're in England, but in the US, it's not that far.
And they have a great venue there, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, isn't it? I think is the state.
Yeah, Pennsylvania.
And they have Manchester Craftsmen's Guild.
Yeah, that's right.
Really lovely venue. It's been going for a number of years now, and it has some great artists. I know that they come in there as well. So, so share with our listeners, how did you get started on playing bass, and at what point did you kind of go from it just being kind of fun thing that you were doing to actually saying, okay, this is actually what I want to do for a living?
Well, it's a really crazy story, you know. I'm the bass guitar is something I was never really interested in playing. And it's something I like any musical instrument, to be honest. I was more of a DJ, kind of just playing dance music and drum and bass music. And I was in a car accident where I broke my back. And it kind of really shifted my life. I was preparing to go in the army. I'd done all my basic training and I was all set to go in the army. And I was actually out celebrating. I went to visit some friends and they picked me up at the train station, and on the way to their home they had a car accident which left me with a broken back, and kind of readjusted my whole thinking of joining the army, because obviously I was medically discharged at that point and I had no idea really what to do, and I found myself really depressed and depleted. And my stepfather randomly one day just brought me home a used bass guitar that he picked up for like £100 or whatever, and just brought it up to my room and said, here, learn this, stop sulking, stop feeling sorry for yourself, do something productive and creative and you'll start feeling better. So I just really kind of sunk into it, and the more and more I got into it, then my father got involved and told me that, you know, you should contact your uncle, who happened to be John McLaughlin. And so we reached out to him, and I had no idea the level of musicianship or even really what a bass player was, or how far you could go with the instrument or anything really. And he suggested that I go to America and try to study over at Berklee and just see where it takes me, just immerse yourself in music and just live and breathe it and see what happens, you know. So I just followed his advice. He helped me get into the school, and then the rest is history, really.
This was at age what, 17 when the accident happened? Was it 16
Yeah,
or
like
17?
17.
And so
Yeah,
from you'd never picked up the bass before, and what age did you end up going over to Berklee?
I was like 20, probably
So,
just 21, but it
so
was,
only 3 years of playing bass, in other words.
well, not even really. I mean, I was kind of in recovery for a long time, so I was probably like 19 when I was given the bass, and it just happened like within a year, like from picking up the instrument to like moving to Boston. It just all happened like really quick, and it's kind of a bit traumatic, to kind of.
So you must have got good very very quickly to be able to go, because I know that obviously Berklee, in terms of how they accept students and everything, is a pretty competitive process as well. So in that year, that time that you had before going to Berklee, from picking up the instrument, I mean, how were you learning the bass? What were was it DVDs or books, or what were you consuming to kind of get you up to kind of a certain standard?
Well, I just bought a couple of books from like a local music store. I had really no idea, because at this point I hadn't reached out to John McLaughlin, so I was kind of on my own. And a friend's dad played bass, so I kind of went to visit him, and he just would give me a couple of lessons here and there. But I became like really obsessed with hiding from the world just to kind of heal in a way, because it was such a traumatic thing that happened to me, and such a shift in life that kind of happened, that I ended up, it was kind of unhealthy in a way, because I was really practicing like 10 to 12 hours every day, like religiously, like so strict doing it. I wouldn't go out and visit friends. I wouldn't socialize in any way. I would just literally lock myself in a room and practice, because it was the only way I could really escape reality and what had happened to me and what I was going to have to face in the future. So
And were you playing with other people at this time as well? Was it really just kind of woodshedding, getting your kind of technique and understanding the bass?
yeah, I didn't really have any friends who did this, and I was kind of separated from my friends because I thought it was kind of strange, because they're just like in the football, in the going to clubs, in the whatever. They couldn't really connect with what I was doing, and I was kind of found myself isolated and alone, and just kind of sitting in my bedroom, just practicing, just by myself.
So let's move forward a bit. We're at just the point just now. You're playing a lot. You're successful as a bass player as well, and you're about to do the kind of online teaching thing as well. What does the first hour of your day look like?
Well, my first hour is I wake up, stretch, try to do some just meditation, just kind of getting my own space a little bit, and then I just go downstairs and I just do like a couple hours practice. Like I have a schedule that I follow that just helps me keep improving. And then what I decided to do, because I became obsessed and kind of addicted to practicing at very early on in my playing, that I decided that I really, well, it's a couple of things really, because I really needed, like I felt like I was up against it, like I needed to catch up with everybody, because I didn't have that childhood where I was jamming with my friends and just playing the instrument for fun. So as I was introduced to the instrument, it became very serious very quickly. And because I realized how far you could go with music at this point, that I felt like I needed to be so structured and organized in the way I practice. So over the years, I kind of really developed the system of utilizing my time in the best way possible. So it became not so much about how much you practice, but what you practice and how the brain works creatively, and just kind of like maximizing my time. So I just really came up with this practice schedule where I could really get to my goals as quick as possible, and then use whatever I was learning organically as quickly as possible. So whatever I was learning, I was using creatively immediately in any musical situation I was in. So what I do is I just practice this stuff every day, and as I'm practicing it, I teach it. Like I film myself practice it, write like documents and create MP3 tracks, so I can kind of apply this stuff in my own way, so it's really for me, and then I can kind of refine it and then understand what's going to help other students, because as musicians we all tend to have the same fears and worries and there's self-doubt. So I'm just trying to create like a creative system. So really what I do for the first few hours is just practice and just try to kind of map out like where this is all going, like how I can teach it, how I can refine it and make it better and all that. So that's the first few hours of my day. And then really I kind of get into composing and just trying to be creative, like just kind of using this stuff that I'm learning in a creative way, which ends up in writing tunes and so on and so forth,
And talk to us about then, I mean, it sounds like one of your biggest strengths is this idea of focus. I mean, do you feel that that is your biggest strength, to be able to focus, or is it something else?
Yeah, it's being able to focus, but it's also, being determined to find a solution to the problem that I had as a musician, the fears and the trauma that I had to overcome. Like, I'm still learning every day and I'm still like nowhere near the musician I want to be, but just being determined to find a path, like that solution that's going to help unlock problems that musicians have. And I feel like I'm an advantage in this way because I was really thrown into the deep end at Berklee with young kids or young adults who were like, it was a dream always to go to Berklee, and they were already kind of prodigies and really brilliant young musicians. And I kind of went in there not knowing what half the notes were on the instrument, which is really interesting because the way I prepared to go to Berklee was by learning these Charlie Parker solos, which kind of fools the listener into thinking you're really better than what you are, but really all you're doing is just applying some technique to your instrument that can sound like you're ahead of how you are, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And from that point of going through Berklee, what was the transition like into actually then becoming a professional player? What were those first gigs that you got? I mean, I remember the first time I was introduced to your music was actually through, I think it was actually maybe through Simon Phillips mentioning, because he was doing some stuff with Hiromi. And then I was checking out Hiromi stuff, and then I noticed that you'd played on one of those. I think it was on one of the DVD recordings I saw as well. But going from Berklee, how did you what was that move like into becoming a professional player?
Well, it just all happened so quickly for me that it was like I was with a friend from Scotland again. Even though I was at Berklee, I didn't really play with anybody because there was this expectation. The rumor had gone around that I knew John McLaughlin, and he helped me go to Berklee. So all these people wanted to jam with me because they thought they were going to get a gig out of it, but I wasn't really good enough to have any kind of gig myself. So I kind of shied away. I played with a couple of people and then got the vibe that they weren't really enjoying what I was doing. So I kind of, again, retreated to my practice room and just started figuring out what I needed to work on and how I could apply it. So it was a friend from Scotland that we just connected. Like, it was a really good laugh and like a kind of real departure from being so serious about it. Like, he was kind of more of just normal in the sense that he enjoyed what he did. He went out and had a beer here and there, just enjoyed his life, enjoyed the process, where I was really kind of serious and not that much fun to be around.
And he was a musician as well?
Yeah, he was a drummer, Alan Brown from Scotland.
Alan Brown, I know Alan. He's a great drummer. Yeah,
he's killing. He's such a nice guy and a really kind of crazy guy. And he was actually auditioning he was only in Berklee for maybe 2 years, or maybe even only 1 year, like 2 semesters or 3 semesters. And he was auditioning, so he had a different mindset. He was in short term to see what he could get and where it was going to take him. I was kind of in for the long haul, but because we were such good friends and we jammed a bit together, that he kind of auditioned for this pop band that was actually going to be touring the Philippines and Southeast Asia. And he asked me to audition with him just because he was comfortable doing his thing with me, kind of in his like energy, you know what I mean? It kind of helped him free up. So I actually just auditioned really for him, not for myself. But because we kind of clicked so well and the vibe was good, they actually asked me to be a part of the project as well. And it was this pop band. So I got the gig, and then immediately I dropped out of college, or I waited to the end of the semester, dropped out of school, moved to a place near Philadelphia with Alan. And we were part of this band that was kind of put together from guys from all over the US, like a record label basically handpicked us. And it had nothing to do with musical skills. It was all to do with vibe and looks and all that stuff. So I was kind of thrown into that gig where we were being filmed every day, rehearsing every day, working on these tunes every day, our image, the way we looked, the way we held ourselves, which was really like an amazing school for me because it really helped me snap out of being so serious and so diligent with practice. It helped me see the other side of it, which was becoming comfortable with myself with an instrument. And because the music wasn't that challenging, that I was able to kind of learn bass on that gig. And from that, it gave me experience of touring. It gave me experience of doing interviews. It gave me experience of being on TV and just kind of being under pressure and having to learn different tunes and collaborate with different pop musicians. And then once that gig ended, I went back to Berklee and finished my studies, but I was already kind of well-rounded and experienced at that point. And then that's when I met Hiromi. So then my kind of second wind happened from this pop world and learning what the bass was and learning how to play the instrument properly. Then I got the Hiromi gig, which I'd previously learned all this technical stuff from just trying to get into Berklee. And then the kind of two skills kind of married each other, and then I was able to kind of barely hang in there with Hiromi, which opened up a lot of doors for me there.
I mean, and that's a pretty frightening group. That's Hiromi's thing. That's a full on. There's nowhere to hide on that gig. You're not just going to be sitting there in the background in the playing in the pocket, are you?
No, it was nerve wracking. It was definitely beyond my skill. So I was really catching up as I was doing the gig. I was under a lot of pressure. And like you said, there's nowhere to hide. And Hiromi's relentless in the sense that she has no fear, and she has no fear for her bandmates. It's either sink or swim. So she would throw these compositions at you with like a few days to learn them. There would be no band rehearsals. You'd just be sitting in your hotel room learning these tunes, and literally she would say, okay, tonight we're playing them. And you can only have the chart for like 2 gigs and that's it.
Wow.
We were just forced to like step up, you know what I mean?
So if one of your obviously biggest strengths is this sense of this kind of determination and this focus as well, what would you say is your biggest weakness as a music artist and as a creative person?
Well, it's confidence, self-doubt, because I was always, since I started playing, I felt like I was always up against it. So, and naturally, I'm not a very confident, extroverted person, you know what I mean? So that's something I've been working on for a long time, just trying to believe in myself and try to accept that I'm in a specific gig for a reason, you know what I mean? Like I don't really have to prove myself at that point. Like I've already got the gig and now it's time to just enjoy it and embrace it and just grow from it. But I've always got this feeling of I'm not good enough, I've got to keep working and and I can put myself under tremendous amount of pressure, which can really have the opposite effect of what I'm going for, like it can create tentativity, not really expressing yourself from fear of messing up or being judged. So all of these things, that's definitely my weakness, and it's definitely caused me to have injuries in music, like where I get a lot of shoulder injury or arm injury because I'm either over practicing or overthinking, or I'm tense on the gig because I don't think I'm good enough to do it, and all this stuff. Yeah, so.
And then how did because I know you've also had a chance to play with like Herbie Hancock and Wayne Shorter and Mike Stone. So how did those gigs come up?
They came up really from a combination of the Hiromi gig and the exposure from that, because like looking back on Hiromi's gig while I was doing it, because I did that gig for 7 years, we did like 4 CDs, 2 DVDs, and like basically toured the world like non-stop. And looking back, I didn't realize at the time what impact she was having on the music world and especially the jazz world. And I was just kind of in it and doing it and just trying to hang on for dear life. I wasn't really reflecting on social media and YouTube or of how popular it was. And I had no interest in that, you know what I mean? I basically just didn't think I was good enough for the gig. So, and then years later, I realized that like, wow, we made an impact. We made a dent on music. We changed a little bit how that stuff's going down. And but what I'm trying to get at is, there were people aware of Hiromi, like Herbie Hancock became aware of Hiromi, Chick Corea, and they were paying attention. Like Dave Holland said to me, I saw him in the airport, and he was like, "Oh, I was watching you guys on TV. It's amazing," and all this stuff. And it just blew my mind that these people knew who I was. And then Herbie's manager contacted me and said, "Hey, they're doing this all-star whatever gig in Tokyo, and do you want to be a part of it?" So I got to do that gig, and Wayne Shorter was on the gig as well. And then Mike Stern, just from being around New York, just got to know him. And we had obviously the mutual friend of John McLaughlin. So John was introducing me to all of these people as well. So it just all came together like that,
And then what's the one thing that you're working on just now that is exciting you the most?
Well, my school, really, because I'm just able to use all of these experiences that I've had, also with the strengths that I have, which is the determination and the will to find a way to do it, and also using my fears that I have, which is like lack of self-belief and all that stuff. So I'm able to kind of articulate it and really help musicians who are struggling with what should I practice, how long should I practice, what gear do I need to have, all this stuff that musicians freak out about and cover themselves with fear, so they kind of really progress. So I'm really kind of reaching out to these musicians who just need like an arm around their shoulder and just some guidance here and there, just to try not to just copy licks and learn transcriptions, but to actually work in a way that helps you find out who you are as a musician, like giving you the tools to create your own voice and to have your own identity as a musician. So that's something I'm really proud of, and something that I've been really working on now for the last 3 years. And I'm actually just about a couple of weeks away, literally, of relaunching my academy to the public. It's kind of been really under cover for all this time, just refining the material and all that stuff. And also, like I was saying, just working on my new CD, which is kind of a reflection of who I am as an artist and as a person. So it's kind of a real good period of mine for creativity.
And for teaching online, obviously, there's in the bass world, you got things like Scott's Bass Lessons, and there's obviously Berklee online courses. There's a number of different places for different to learn bass online now. So what is it going to be that's going to make your courses and your institute and your academy stand out?
Well, it's a couple of things. First of all, I've been to Berklee for 4 years, but over a period of... I studied at Berklee for 4 years, but actually over a period of 6 years, because I left to do that gig. So I've kind of seen, I've met a lot of musicians and a lot of teachers in that time. And I'm actually a good friend of Scott's as well, and he has a great story about how he got going and the difficulties he had to overcome just to be the musician he wanted to be. And this, like I said, this is something I really started about 3 years ago. So I was kind of doing it at the same time as all these guys like Scott and Berklee online lessons. It was all kind of coming up at the same time, and I was kind of checking out what these people were doing and kind of trying to take what I loved and enhance it to kind of make it my own, and also things that I didn't like, and just trying to adapt it and be more general for the students. And also because I didn't kind of launch it to the public, I kind of had a select amount of students who would come in and give me feedback on what they liked and what they didn't like. Like if the material was too easy, if it was too difficult, if it was too much material, that it was difficult and overwhelming to kind of follow. So what I really found that sets my stuff apart is it's not just a bunch of lessons. It's more of a 2-year structured system. It's like a college course. So really it's, I'm not really giving the students a free reign, like a free for all, like here's a bunch of lessons, knock yourself out. Next month there'll be a whole bunch of new lessons. It's much more of like a structured system, like a systematic approach. So I feel like it's just a little bit more organized and a little bit more geared towards the student who doesn't want to just get some goodies now to kind of have a new lick to play, but it's more of a an approach that really gives the student in the long haul the creative freedom that they can basically play whatever they're hearing in their mind. So really, I want them to be restricted by nothing other than their imagination. And that is really the premise of what I'm going for here, and something I've really taken my time to make sure that I'm not just someone giving away just random bunch of lessons. And I'm not talking about Scott here, because I think he's really great and he's done really well. And I'm really happy for him, but I just wanted mine to be more of a gear towards longevity for the students. So it's going to kind of make them think and make them become creative in their own way,
And then talked about a time when you worked on something. You worked on a project or something. You were really kind of giving it your all, but for whatever reason, it didn't work out like you had hoped it would work out. And more importantly, what were the lessons that you took away from that experience?
Well, it's a great question. The main thing I'm learning really as I go on is, as musicians, because we all struggle to pay our bills and to make things happen, because there's so much competition and it's just right time, right place and all that stuff. I think a lot of musicians chase I need a manager, I need a booking agent, I need a record label, I need all of these things. And I've always found myself that when I'm kind of doing everything myself, like my first record, I did it all myself. I hired the musicians I wanted to hire. I had no one kind of to answer to. It was just all me and a close few friends who could help me produce it or kind of refine my ideas, so it just wasn't just all my ego, whatever. That stuff was always successful to me, but as soon as I found myself with a manager or a label, I kind of subconsciously or even consciously let go of my own work towards the project or the realization of the project, and I kind of put it in someone else's hands. And as soon as I would put my project or work into someone else's hands, like a manager or a record label, I felt I struggled more to kind of get out there, because nobody's going to care about you and your career more so than yourself. So instead of looking for managers and labels and all that stuff, I started collaborating with managers and labels, like doing the groundwork myself, like making their job easier, but also inspiring them, that I was so motivated and so focused on what I was doing. I took it really seriously, and I was finding avenues for them to market me or giving them contacts to try to book me gigs. I just didn't leave it up to the manager or the label to make it happen. It's basically always down to you, unless you have like a machine behind you, like Hiromi's got a great record deal and the label put a lot of backing into her and the manager is really hands-on. But most musicians aren't that fortunate. You get managers, and as soon as they see that you're too much work for them, they're kind of like, well, there's nothing really I can do for you. You need too much attention. I don't have the time to do that, because simply you're just not generating enough money for them to invest the time emotionally.
And so, how do managers and agents take that when you're going in and say, "Okay, I've got this thing here we can do. I've got this thing here. We've got these opportunities." So you're really in sometimes it's called basically deal flow. You're creating a lot of the deal flow, and you're creating a lot of the action. How do they take that?
Well, they love it, because first of all, it's just the reality of the business. Like, I would always give my manager a hard time going, hey, I need gigs, I need to do this, I need to do that. And then they would get a gig that didn't pay enough money. And then I'm like moaning, like, it didn't pay enough money. I lost money. I had to pay for gas. I had to pay for musicians, and I can't keep doing this. And they're just like, well, what do you want me to do? The industry's so difficult. You've got to get your name out there. You've got to do A, B, C, D. And it's really hard for you to become a solo artist, because everyone recognizes you as a sideman. And most of the time, people still think I play with Hiromi, and they don't really aware that I'm really trying to pursue my own career. And it's just kind of this like cycle. So a manager like that, like for example, that would benefit from me or whoever, working for them, for yourself, if you know what I mean, to try to say, okay, I've played in this club with Hiromi. I called up the guy to get me a gig. He said, no way. But because the manager would then probably have an in through another artist with that label, that he could pull favors out of them, that they could kind of work with you to kind of make it happen, so it kind of benefited everybody. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And because they already have a reputation and a name in the music world, that kind of a club owner or a club promoter would be more willing to give him a chance than just you cold calling. You know what I mean?
And on that, I mean, talk to us about any kind of aha ideas or light bulb moments in your life so far. I mean, it sounds like there's been lots of different kind of things, the different moments, but are there any that kind of stand out, any kind of insights that you've had on this journey?
Yeah, I think it's easy to feel sorry for yourself, and really easy to make yourself feel like, I just need a break, I need this, or I'm good, people should know me, like all this stuff. The realization I had was really what you put out there, like what energy you put out there, basically comes back to you. So if you're sitting there feeling sorry for yourself, like, why is this not happening for me, and all this negativity and all this, like, nothing's really going to move for you in a positive way. So the aha moment for me is to really just keep going, make sure you have a goal, that you're not just like blindly practicing and just doing things for the sake because you think they're going to make you better. Really have like a goal, like, find your favorite musicians. Like Mike Stern for me was one of my favorite musicians, or still is, and so what I would do is go to their gigs, give them my CD, talk to them, ask if I could jam with them, just be enthusiastic and be really positive about who you are and what you're doing. And for me, it helped me. I'm still overcoming my fears of self-confidence. It's just really just putting yourself out there. Don't be scared. Make sure that your dream is bigger than your fear. That's the biggest aha moment for me, is when your dream is bigger than your fear, no matter how hard it is, you will find a way. So for me, it's like, what do I want to achieve by releasing a CD? What do I want to achieve by putting this bass lesson on YouTube? What do I want to achieve by writing this track? Always thinking about what your big goal is. What's your end product going to be? And once you have a goal to work towards, you'll start to see the opportunities will present themselves, simply because of the energy that you're putting out there.
And that's a great line. Make sure your dream is bigger than your fears. That's a great line there as well. What other advice have you received over the years that you think that have really made a big impact on you?
Well, John McLaughlin told me, like, I looked at him and I was just like, am I too old for this? Am I ever going to be the musician I want to be, or the musician you want me to be? I never had these years in childhood where I could just get comfortable with the idea of music and musicianship. And he just said, look, music's physical, like, there's time, you have time. In a way, and just because he said I had time, it made me really think about, well, what does he mean? And then I'm just thinking about music, and like, music's a physical, like, playing music is just a physical thing. We've all listened to music our whole lives. We all know what we like. We all know what sounds good. We all know what makes us move, what connects with us, So really, playing music is just a physical way of connecting what you already know. And I think that musicians have that divide where they're like, they don't realize that they already know this stuff. They already know how they want to sound and what sounds good to them. And so really, it's just understanding the physicality and the emotional side of it. Like, if you can find a way to practice to really make you free on your instrument, so you can just close your eyes and play it like a piano, like, so you can just really kind of visualize the instrument, then can work on your emotional connection with music and just apply it to the physical. So when he said you have time, it kind of made me think in that way. And the other thing he said to me that really resonated with me was, take care of music and music will take care of you, which was just like, all that positive stuff. Just be positive, be honest to yourself, be your biggest critic, be open to criticism, understand to filter the good from the bad, negative comments that people give to you on YouTube and all the rest of it. And just, if you take care of music in a pure and honest way, then opportunities will present themselves and music will take care of you. Always a door opens when you least expect it.
And you mentioned YouTube as well, but are there any other kind of online resources or apps that you really love and you think our listeners should check out?
Yeah, I mean, just like There's a website called Bass Talk, which is just a forum of like an UK bass chat, and there's these forums where like-minded people can come and just communicate and ask questions in a non-threatening environment where you can just kind of be part of a community, and instead of like trying to be better than the guy next to you, is just grow with the guy next to you, you know, because no one's going to really take your gigs away from you. So just being a part of these forums and just really having an open mind to, like, instead of being in competition with everybody, just try to embrace everybody and just learn from each other. And then you'll start to see that there are enough gigs for everybody, you know. So I'm really kind of into the idea. I don't really spend that much time on them because I'm just too busy, but the idea of forums, especially for like younger musicians who are starting out and trying to figure out what to practice and who's who in the bass world or the music world, I find these a great resource. And of course, sites like Scott, where it's not all about him, it's just about the basses in general and the community, and hopefully that's what I'm trying to achieve too, just a community of like-minded spirits who are just trying to play music well, you know.
So let's imagine if you woke up tomorrow morning. I mean, you already spoke about this traumatic event that happened with the accident and how that kind of transformed things. You went from obviously a very low place to really taking something from that and really using that as a way, as an event in your life to kind of propel you forward to kind of reach for higher things. So let's imagine if you woke up tomorrow morning, but you had to start from scratch. So all you have is your bass and the knowledge and, you know, the chops and the technique that you've acquired over these years in music, but you don't know anyone. You have no contacts. You have to really start from ground zero. What would you do? How would you restart?
Well, today, you know, like when I was starting out, there was no internet, you know what I mean? There was none of this stuff. You just literally had to get on a bus. For me, I found myself a few times jumping on a bus to jump on another bus to jump on another bus to get to a record store that had a particular CD that I wanted, you know, and that was beautiful in a sense. But now, because there's so much available at your fingertips, if I was a musician starting out and I had this knowledge and chops and all this stuff, then I would start video blogging. I would just start putting videos up and start hitting social media, and I would just do it in a way that it's not like, hey guys, check me out, but just trying to be as humble as possible and just kind of putting myself out there, because I really believe that the cream always rises to the top, you know, and it's a cliche for a reason, you know, because it really does. If you're good enough, you're going to be found, you know. So I would really put myself out there on videos. I would create music and post them on Facebook and Twitter, and just really just interact with other musicians, like find other musicians online and don't make everything about yourself, but really immerse yourself in what they're doing. Encourage your competition, you know, encourage them, like just be a kind of a cheerleader for what you're all trying to do, which is something you love. And the problem with musicians is they're so egotistical that they're so interested in what they can get, like what gig can I get, not caring in the world about anybody else. Or when you listen to somebody who's good, I always hear and see the same things as, oh, I could do that. Instead of just embracing it as being really beautiful and amazing and just learning and growing from it. So what I would try to do is just try to become a part of the community that isn't really threatening anybody and projecting my own fears and masking them as confidence, but just really immersing myself in a community and just trying to fit into it. You know what I mean?
That's great advice as well. So share with our listeners the best way that they can connect with you and learn more about what you're up to and all these different projects you've got going on just now.
Well, the best way to connect to me is through my website, which is TonyGrayBassAcademy.com, or you can email me at TonyGrayBassAcademy@gmail.com, or just through my Facebook page, which is Tony Gray Bass. You know, I have a personal page, but really the best way to see what I'm going on with my music and my career is through my website. My Facebook page /Tony Gray Bass, where I'm kind of coming up. I'm going to be launching a lot of new material, like the relaunch of my Bass Academy, my new CD. I've got like a gazillion free lessons that are coming out. Aguilar Amps have sponsored me and are going to give away some free gear, some free pedals and all that stuff. Federa have just given me a new signature bass, which we're going to be promoting, and they've given me a bunch of stuff to give away. TC Electronics, a bunch of pedals, bunch of giveaways, DR Strings. So all these companies have kind of come together with me to help me just get the word out, just see what people are connecting with what I'm doing, you know. There's going to be a ton of interactive stuff coming up very soon, so yeah, please check out.
Great, we look forward to it. So Tony, thank you so much for coming on the show. A really fascinating journey that you've had, and I really I wish you all the best in the future. I really look forward to seeing both the Bass Academy go from strength to strength, but also you and your career go from strength to strength as well.
I really appreciate your time and great questions, and you know, just giving me a platform to talk about what I'm up to and all that stuff. So I really do appreciate it.
Thanks, Tony.
Thank you, man.
Hey, James Taylor here again. And if you're interested in living a more creative life, then I'd love to invite you to join me as I share some of the most successful strategies and techniques that high-performing creatives use. I put them all together in a free downloadable ebook that you can get by going to jamestaylor.me. That's jamestaylor.me to get your free downloadable ebook on creativity.